In the previous video, we've seen that when you have a coefficient in front of the x, if you try and differentiate this whole thing here, it will give you this. It will give you this. So in general, if you try and differentiate inverse sine of a bubble here, then it will give you this form. But then you've got to times with the derivative of the bubble itself, which is this bit here. So in general, if you're trying to differentiate inverse sine of a bubble here, let's say this is 7x here. Then from here, following our normal routine, we would sine equally to both sides. That would then give us this with the 7x here. And then following on up with our normal routine, differentiate this. So that will give you that. And because y is a function of x, you need to use a chain rule here. But then come to this stage here, you've got to differentiate the 7x. So this whole box here becomes a 7. Okay, so the point here is that, the point here is that when you differentiate this, it will give you something of this form here. But then you've got to times with the derivative of the bubble itself. Okay, so this is supposed to be the bubble prime here. So hang on. So when you try to differentiate this, it will give you something of this form here. But then remember to times with the derivative of the bubble itself. Okay, so in general, hang on. In general, if you try and differentiate a bubble here, it will give you a bubble squared, but then you've got to times with the derivative of the bubble. And this bit here is saying make sure that you don't square root a negative number. So this bit here is just saying make sure you don't square root a negative number. Okay, so in general, if you try and differentiate a bubble here, then it will give you something of this form here, the bubble here, and then you've got to remember to times with the derivative of the bubble itself. And then yeah, so write this down somewhere. Memorize it if you can. Okay. So for example, if you're asked to integrate this, now looking at this, it is of the tan form. It is of the tan form. So this here is of this form here. Okay, so when you try and integrate this, you are really looking for something in such a way that when you differentiate it, it will give you this. So if you look at this here, you can see that this is of this form here. So the u here is really this bit here. So when you integrate this, you are really looking for something in such a way that when you differentiate it, it will give you this thing here. Well, let's make this to be our initial guess. Inverse tan of let's say of 3 over 7x here. Okay, so when you try and differentiate this, it will give you this thing here. It will give you 1 over 1 plus this thing, 3 over 7x squared. But then don't forget we have to times with the derivative of the bubble itself, which is 3 over 7. So if you're trying to integrate this here, your initial guess would be this. But the thing is, when you make this to be your initial guess and you differentiate it, it will give you this whole thing here. You don't want oh sorry, this should be the squared. You don't want this thing here, so you have to make the adjustment to your initial guess, which should be 7 over 3. So the point is that if you integrate this, it will give you 7 over 3 inverse tan of 3 over 7x plus c. Okay, so what I'm trying to illustrate is that when you look at this here, this is of the tan form. So from here, maybe work backwards to get to this. I hope you understand. But the important thing is to write all these down somewhere. Okay.